So I've got a condition called oculocutaneous albinism, which means that I'm an albino. You might not notice it with the ginger hair. My condition kind of means that I can't see in bright light. Effectively, my eyes let too much light in. So to process everything quickly is quite hard for me. But growing up with the condition, I was always told just get on with it. If you can't see it, get closer. That's what my dad always used to say to me. Which I'm glad he did, because it means that I just crack on with it and I find ways around it. Scottie often says to me, sometimes I'm the blind one, Soph. So yeah, for me, growing up, I just didn't let it get in the way.
Moving on to the para squad, it was because I hate to say it, but like sort of failed in my first year of becoming an able-bodied sort of sprinter, a youngster on the team. And my knowledge of the Paralympic Games was much less than Sophie's was at that time. But then all of a sudden I was, 2 years out from a Paralympic Games in London, the biggest ever Paralympic Games, and I was about to go there. So, that was my goal and that was my purpose on the squad. That, the Olympics was out of my mind, it was the Paralympics.
Well, I went to London. I actually watched Scottie win her silver medal in the kilo with Aileen.
It's mad, isn't it? Like because I forget that, and when Sophie says it, I think, oh wow, gosh, she was actually watching. And yeah, and then we were partners in the next one, and so it's quite special that actually. I can't think of a lot of tandem pairings that can say that about each other. So, and that's really cool. I think we met in the bottom D of the velodrome. I think you may have had your dad with you, and we got introduced. This is Sophie Thornhill. She is, visually impaired. She wants to ride on the tandem. Like, will you help out or something? And I think you were in. I just remember you being in the sports city, the pink kit,
sports city, really,
and you were like super keen and super quiet. Oh, how that has changed. I don't know, immediately I was like, yeah, on a race with her. But you were still too young, weren't you, I think?
I was only 14
10,
at the time.
told
Sophie and Helen, it seems, from coming in 5 years ago, Sophie and Helen already riding together at that point, it genuinely did seem like not just a riding partnership, but a friendship.
Yeah, I think we've always kind of clicked really well. I think kind of we're very different but very similar in different ways, and I think that works for us.
We respect each other as people and like as sisters really, so we don't have to be best friends. Like Sophie said, we are very different, but we bring out great qualities in each other.
And it works for us as a pair, and I think that's what kind of, because we are different in ways, we kind of fill the gaps, I think, with each other.
Once we'd finished Glasgow, obviously the coaches all met, and it was 2 years away, Rio, so decisions had to be made, and they did. I remember John Norfolk, our old coach, came up to me in the gym and said, we've decided like you and Sophie are the team that is going forward now. And of course, like, we had no idea whether we'd make it to Rio, but that was, if we were going to, it was going to be us two, sort of thing, as the sprint tandem. Back then, we had a lot of success from there. We won the next World Champs together in 2015 Apeldoorn, and we were so far ahead of the rest of the world. There was, complacency. We can probably look back and say maybe, but back then we just thought, oh, this is brilliant. We're going really well together, loving life. Training's going well. We're racing well. We've put out times nobody has done before on the tandem, so this must all be going really smoothly. We didn't look into any kind of depth into our relationships or anything so deeply at that point.
At that point, you didn't need to. Absolute devastation, to be honest. Yeah, it was completely out of the blue. I remember sitting in the track centre before the kilo, and the Aussies pulled out time that was our PB. And then we thought, well, so I went, oh, track's running fast, we'll be all right. And we were sat on the start line. And I remember hearing a unbelievably fast time that we'd never even gotten close to before. And you just sat there thinking, oh God. That's kind of not the feeling you want before going up to a start line. You know, I think I'd never been beaten at a World Championships before. And we, as a pairing, we were unbeaten at a World Championships as well. So kind of, I suppose there is that element of, well, you're just going to win again. And in hindsight, it's kind of the best thing that ever happened to us, being beaten by the Dutch. But at the time, it feels like the worst thing in the world. I think like the world's ending.
This was 100% the turning point in our career. No matter what happens from now onwards, we then had to really look deeply into how we operate as a pair, how we treat each other, how we treat our approach to training, you know, and we sat a few times in a few meetings, didn't we, and we, you know, were brutal at times.
I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd never been to a Games before, and I kind of didn't know what that build-up should look like. I didn't know what it should look like from my own point of view. I didn't know what it should look like from my staff's point of view. From the parents' point of view, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was sort of like a rabbit in headlights, really. And I think that probably showed. But sometimes you just need to go through that, but kind of just understand that you have to have trust in other people. You have to have trust in yourself. You have to have trust in the person next to you, that they do want it as much as you. And I think it's a weird place to be, but I think to be, for us as a pair, to be at that place was the best thing that ever happened to our tandem partnership. Because we would both say, if we hadn't have lost at the Worlds, we wouldn't have won in Rio. If we'd have won at Worlds, we wouldn't have won in Rio. Because we needed to completely start over.
The Games itself didn't faze us because I think we were so focused on just that ride. You know, I think as Steve Peters, I had learnt from him years ago, he always said, you know, the situation changes, but what you're doing never does. So you've almost got to forget wherever you are and whatever it means, because if you do think about what it means, yeah, everybody would crumble, I think.
Well, I remember from watching it, I can't see the board, so I was thinking, like, well, I don't know what's going on.
And
so I was sat there like, come on, someone tell me something.
And I wasn't saying anything, so I was like, looking at
then
the
you went, oh, they're 8/10 down with a lap to go. I was like, they're not going to bridge 8/10. Surely you can't bridge 8/10 in a lap.
and they didn't.
No, and then I remember seeing like an orange box, because I knew that orange box meant Paralympic record, and it didn't come up. So I was like, well, so they've not gone faster then, have they? And I remember thinking, so I looked to you, I think, to confirm before I celebrated. And then you looked at me like, and then John Norfolk kind of came over and we just had a bit of a hug.
There's that amazing moment, isn't there, when we're grabbing each other and I'm like, we did it! So!
That picture of that, isn't it?
That one!
Yeah. That's on my mum's bathroom wall, that is.
You just think, oh God, I want to go back and feel it. You know, those moments that you want to bottle, like there's only been a few in our career, and that was the first, probably, that you just feel, I just want to bottle that. That moment when, because Soph wasn't 100% sure, like you said, you knew a bit, but then I grabbed and I went, we've done it, Soph, and like we threw our poor bikes down at the end of that.
Slatted it down there.
I think we forget it sometimes, don't we, Soph, that that's what we went through.
Yeah.
I think it does create a bond, and it's a bond, like you said, that can't ever be broken because we've gone through that. But it's sort of more than that. It's sort of, you now, from that moment, you know that when the going gets tough, you know that you can rely. If both of us are all in, and we've both said to each other for this cycle up to Tokyo, we're all in, and we know that if we need to do that again, we know we can do it. That's everything, that is, you know.
That's what brought us together and kind of made us both into the athletes I think we are now. Like I say, for me, I grew up, I learned a lot. I don't fear Tokyo like I feared Rio, I think. After standing on that top step in Rio, it's infectious, you want it again, and we want to stand on that top step in Tokyo, and there are stepping stones towards that. So 2018 was the best year of our career by far.
It's hard getting there, but it's almost harder staying there, you know, because everybody's chasing you, everybody's watching you. That means you can't put a foot wrong in training or in a race now. So there's a different kind of pressure being at the top now. It's exciting, but it's also tough. Everybody has a day that you don't enjoy. There are training sessions that we don't enjoy, but you're doing it together, and that's a special thing. We've got a great team, you know, we call us Team Tandem, and we're all going through it, all 6 of us together. So you enjoy the pain together, you know. You enjoy the process together and the build up, and it just makes everything better.
Neil Faki, one of the guys in the tandem, he always puts it really well. I want to leave the sport with a time that people can't reach for years, and I like that. I like the fact that he's gone like, well, I want to leave something behind in the sport that's going to be remembered
and motivate people.
Yeah, exactly, and be a driver for the sport. And I think kind of we've done that with when we've set the world records. That's driving us. So if it's driving us, it's going to drive someone in the future. And I think, especially for para sport, that's what's needed. Like a real kind of a specialism and a progress is needed in para sport. And I think if we can be kind of the leaders in that, not just us as a parent, but GB as a whole, I think we can lead para sport in a much better place than we came.
Really well done.